Hello, fellow YouTubers. Welcome to D-Nice Top 5. Before I get started, just want to tell you a little bit of why I'm doing the top 5. Since I was little, I've always loved to rank things, whether that be music, movies, sports, you name it, or I'd do a rating them from 1 to 10. Just ask my parents how I drove them crazy with doing that. So I wanted to do a top 5 YouTube, and I've been thinking about this for quite some time. Before I get started on today's theme of top 5, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, share, and also, most importantly, comment, because I love feedback. Like to know your top 5. This isn't, of course, the top 5. It's just my personal, passionate top 5. So we're going to start off. Today's top 5 is going to be my favorite top 5 musical bands or artists of all time. Now, I'm not saying before I get going that these are the greatest, because if I did a top 5, who I feel is the greatest top 5, it'd be different than my top 5 personal favorite list. So keep that in mind. In the future, I will do what I feel is arguably the top 5 best music artist bands of all time. This is my personal 5. So, starting off, number 5 on my list is Genesis / Phil Collins, because obviously Phil Collins had a very successful career with Genesis for a long time. Obviously, during that time, he went on to do a lot of solo projects, a lot of great solo albums, so many hits on his solo side. But with the band Genesis, they originally, as you know, may have formed with Peter Gabriel. I was not a big fan of Genesis at that time. With Peter Gabriel, Genesis, before Phil Collins took over, they were very, very progressive, and I just couldn't connect with that kind of music. Now, I love Peter Gabriel, don't get me wrong. When he went on to do his solo career, Salisbury Hill, Sledgehammer, Don't Give Up with Kate Bush, some of my favorite songs of all time. Peter Gabriel is a genius, there's no doubt about it. But when he was with Genesis, I tried over and over again to get into music, and I couldn't. But Genesis obviously means so much to me, especially in the 80s, growing up as a kid. So many songs after songs that just were very impactful. Obviously, my favorite Genesis song, which is kind of a more rare and unknown song, is Man on the Corner. But even into the early 90s, Genesis held their mark as one of the greatest bands. Obviously, other songs that come to mind is No Son of Mine, obviously a great song. Jesus, He Knows Me. So many great songs. So Genesis / Phil Collins, because I know Phil Collins did come up on a solo with In the Air Tonight, which is now in every single movie you see. Go back to The Hangover when Mike Tyson is singing it. It's just an iconic song, and you never get tired of it. As much as it's played on the radio, as much as you hear it in the movies, that song just is timeless. So number 5, Genesis. Number 4. Now this was tough. I kept going back and forth, but number 4 favorite band, because I have to look at a lot of things when you look at favorite bands. You look at, one of the things is impact that it had when you were growing up. And did those songs that impact you when you're a child, did they still stand the test of time? And the easy answer to that would be the band, the Eagles. So Eagles, growing up in the 70s, and in the 80s, obviously I'm Generation X. Shout out to Generation X, by the way. So the Eagles, they were compared to, or they were labeled as, the American Beatles. And I totally get that. All through the 70s, even into the early 80s, they stayed very strong with so many songs. Obviously, Hotel California is probably their most well-known song. It'll go down as one of the greatest rock songs of all time. There's no disputing that. I don't think anybody that can argue that in any way. One of These Nights is probably one of my favorite Eagles songs. Witchy Woman is a great song. Obviously, there was genius with all the members: Joe Walsh, Don Henley, Glenn Frey. Glenn Frey and obviously Don Henley were at the forefront of writing those songs. And, you know, Glenn Frey's writing style versus Don Henley's writing style is very different. And you can hear it in the songs and the arrangement. But I love anything that Glenn Frey wrote. I love anything that Don Henley wrote. I love. Tequila Sunrise, another great song. That's a just unbelievable song. Matter of fact, I was listening to that song last night. So Eagles clearly make the number 4 mark. So number three might surprise some people, because as you can tell, my list of top 5 is going in different directions, different genres. Number 3 is Daryl Hall and John Oates. When I look back at the early 80s, especially in my days growing up as a kid playing soccer and listening to music with my dad, we played a lot of Hall & Oates. Maneater, I Can't Go For That, Private Eyes, it just goes on and on and on. You make, You Make My Dreams Come True, Rich Girl, Sarah Smile, One on One, that's a great song. And they went through a string there of just one album after another just being a great album. Probably my favorite Hall & Oates song is Out of Touch. That came out in '84. But it's so hard to say, because then I can listen to late 70s Hall & Oates like Sarah Smile and Rich Girl, and I just have a big smile on my face. Just an incredible duo. When you talk about harmony and melody, they epitomize that. I wish music today had more of that, what Hall & Oates was able to do and blend their voices together. Just, like I said, when I think of the 80s music, and I listen to a lot of different things, Hall & Oates is always up there in the forefront. All right, number 2, and this is probably not going to surprise anybody that really knows me really well. Number 2 is Journey. It was one of the first bands I really got into in the late 70s. I kind of grew up with music. My dad was a musician. He was in a college band. Listened to a lot of, was inspired by a lot of things, but Journey he really attached to, and I really attached to as a young kid. So once again, I have to say, arguably, I know, and there's so many great male voices out there, so many different male voices out there, so it's really hard to compare. But Steve Perry to me is my favorite voice. The tenor voice that he has, obviously he was inspired by many people such as Sam Cooke, and Sam Cooke is another singer that I just love hearing back in the 60s and that. So Journey obviously have so many love ballads. That's what they're known for. Open Arms, Faithfully, Girl Can't Help It, just so many, Who's Crying Now. But, you know, I love all their albums in the 70s, late 70s. I love in the early 80s, Escape. Top to bottom, that Escape album is unbelievable. Of course, Don't Stop Believin'. Don't Stop Believin' is one of my favorite songs of all time as well. And it's amazing how that's played in every church ceremony, any kind of wedding, whatever, you name it. Don't Stop Believin' is a constant, and I don't know if anybody gets ever sick of that song. That song is played to death all the time, every day. But it's still the way it starts out with the piano, and I'm always a big sucker when it comes to songs that start off with a piano. Piano's my favorite instrument. Love the violin too, but piano's the epitome. And that song, Don't Stop Believin', a lot of their, several of their Journey songs start off with the piano or keyboard. And it also goes down as one of the greatest songs, but they had so many impactful songs that really, and they were a stadium band performer. You know, when you went to go see Journey, you weren't talking 10,000, 15, you were talking or even 15,000, you were talking 50 to 100,000 fans going to see Journey, and that's the way they toured. And Steve Perry, bless his heart, total perfectionist. It was sad that they broke up, never got back together. And I have my own reasons for why Journey never got back together, but that band means so much to me. Like I said earlier with Hall & Oates in the 80s, I also can reflect back and look at Journey as one of those other bands of the 80s that really meant a lot to me. All right, so now we get to number one. And number one is a band that's nowhere even comparable to the other four that I've talked about. Genesis, Hall & Oates, Eagles, Journey. They are a progressive rock band. And I was introduced to Journey in 1979 by one of my neighborhood friends that was a little bit older than me, and he was real big into music. And I remember going into his room for the first time and just seeing a shrine. All of his walls had this band, Rush. And it was funny because at the time when I first was introduced to Rush, I remember seeing his room, I was just blown away. And then he had this section on its own of albums that were separate from the other albums of just Rush. So he had a certain corner spot for Rush. This guy knows who he is. I can maybe mention his name, Greg Starosky. So if you're out there, Greg, you're the one that got me initially into Rush. I knew nothing about Rush. Growing up, I was introduced to so much. The Eagles, Wings, Diana Ross, Pavarotti. I mean, I was introduced to so much music, but I never knew anything about Rush. Never heard anything from them, not even on the radio. So as I got introduced to Rush, I was blown away by their music. I remember the first album I heard was 2112, and I thought, I've got to see them in person. I got to see them live. So I begged my parents to take me to go see Rush. I was about 11 years old and got to see Rush, the Signals tour. Blew me away. Still to this day, greatest concert I've ever seen. First concert I've ever seen, but greatest concert as well. And with Rush, there's no one like them. I can't compare any band out there to Rush. Maybe to some exception, The Who, but Rush was always challenging themselves. That's what I loved about Rush. Every album was completely different. You listen to, for example, Hemispheres in 78, and then go to Moving Pictures in 81, and you go, this is two different bands. There's no way this is the same band. The other thing that's been talked a lot about with Rush is they're a three-man band. If you listen to their music, especially live, you will think that at least 5 guys are playing instruments, maybe 6 guys. There's no way 3 guys could create that kind of sound. So their music, especially in the early days, was very complex, almost scientific, mathematical for sure. And by the time they hit the early 80s is when their music appealed to a wider audience. Moving Pictures, Signals, Grace Under Pressure, that came out in 84. They are the thinking man's band. Each of them, Alex, Neil, who passed away in 2020, and then Geddy Lee on bass. Each of them are music virtuosos in their instruments. Each of them are perfectionists. Now they play differently. Like, for example, Alex is more based on emotion and feel, whereas Neil's more methodical in his drumming, but he's so precise. My favorite drummer easily. I was able to see them in concert 21 times from 1983 until their last tour in 2015. And I have a love and passion for so many for so many different artists and genres, but Rush will always be my absolute favorite. They help shape my life. They help shaped who I am. I just have so much respect for those three very humble Canadians. So Rush, number one for sure, no doubt about it. So there you go. There's my top 5. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Like I said, if you like the channel, subscribe, share, and definitely comment. Like I mentioned earlier, I will read those comments and I'll try to give feedback, because I love other people's perspectives. So, all right. Until next time, D-Nice Top 5.